Yogesh?
फोटो का भी कार्तिक को नहीं पता।
अभी बोलना
होगा एंड में आपको वीडियो ऑन
Yes, Dinesh, I can hear you.
Yeah. Yogesh, thank you. I think it seems to be connecting well. Two things, if where you will change the slides after I introduce, let's say I introduce one panelist,
Okay.
then you will change the slide, right? How do I tell you to change the slide?
When you want to show the slide only when you introduce the panelists, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end you can say that was our panelist, the first panelist. That was our second panelist. That time I'll change the slide.
You'll change. No? That was our first panelist, so you will get the indication, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the second question is in terms of in the end.
Okay.
We want to have photographs of one is the panelist.
Okay.
And Dr. Chetan.
Okay.
And the along with audience if possible.
Along with the audience is possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Thank you. Anybody else has any other point?
So far okay.
Okay. These questions I'll have to keep it separate.
Yeah.
Achha, and also this polling, you will control the polling, right?
Yeah.
So after every question, after every panelist, there will be one question.
Yes.
Okay, somebody I think has joined. Who has joined?
I don't know who it is. Yeah. Dinesh, okay. So questions, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Dinesh, please continue.
No. This polling you will manage.
Polling after every thing, after every person.
Yeah.
The polling will start.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, who has joined, please? 359112.
I don't know. Somebody is. I don't know name Dinesh, but when the things start, the people join. Please tell me who is supposed to be the co-host.
Mute him. You can't mute him. Ask him to mute himself. Okay, leave it.
He's already muted. Yeah.
Let him in. Yes.
Questions.
Subish is having some trouble connecting.
ಬಂದ ಅವಡಿ ಫೋಟೋನ ಬಿಜಿ ಆಯ್ತು ಸರಿ ಆ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ದ இங்கே ஆள் இருந்தா கூட அந்த மாதிரி ஓடலாமா வீட்டுக்கு
Mr. Mohan Babu, sir, are you in the meeting?
Yeah, very much.
Are you using the name principal here?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Pawar, I'm going to stop your video. If you can turn off your video. Mr. Pawar GP, if you can turn off the video, please. Yes, Dua is already here in the meeting. Pawar, I don't see him. JS Dua. No, he's not in the waiting list. Yeah. I don't see him. JS Dua, just now he's come. Just now, he's joined just now. JS Dua. Yeah. JS Dua is here.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Hello, good evening to you.
I am Jawahar Singh Dua, so I'm joined by the name of JS Dua.
Yes, sir. Honor to have you with us.
Thank you so much, sir.
We are waiting for one more panelist.
Good evening, everyone. We'll start the program in another few minutes. And this program is live both on Zoom as well as for YouTube. There's a large audience whom we have diverted for YouTube because of the traffic and because of so much of interest on this topic. So the last panelist, Mr. Azadi, he is just finishing another session, but I think he should join any moment. So we will start our program in the next 5 minutes. Thank you everybody for joining. And we already have Dr. Mohan Babu, Mr. Gopinath. Then we also have Madam Professor Geeta. Then we also have Mr. JS Dua. We are waiting for Mr. Azadi, who should join any moment. We also have Professor Dr. Chetan Parekh, and we also have other guests who have joined. So in the next 5 minutes, we should join. I hope everybody is able to hear me loud and clear, and all of us will get an opportunity to ask questions. There is a chat box. We can continue. Yeah, we can continue using the chat box. Mr. Dua, you are able to hear me loud and clear?
Hello, yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, great. Mr. Gopinath? Mr. Gopinath, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
I don't know.
Mr. Gopinath, Just trying to check your audio. What about Dr. Mohan Babu?
Yeah, very much.
Okay, great. And Professor Geeta?
So there is one question. Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening to you.
So there is one question. This large audience.
Professor Geeta, she's there. Okay.
So the large audience, is that supposed to
Dr. Chetan,
motivate
you can
us?
hear me?
Can you hear me, Mr. Rao, now?
I can hear Dinesh. Mr. Dua is asking a question.
That is to Mr. Dinesh Rao. Mr. Rao, the large audience, is that supposed to motivate us or intimidate us?
Yogesh, have you muted me?
No, Dinesh, we can hear you, but you can't. Can you hear us?
Yeah, that is the question.
Sorry.
We can't.
Sorry, my apologies. My apologies. I was muted. So good that you pointed out. Yeah, I'm able to hear all of you now.
Okay. Professor Dua had a question
We
for
can
you.
hear you, Dinesh. And
Right.
can you hear Professor Dua's question?
Yeah, my question was simple. A large audience, is that supposed to motivate us or intimidate us?
No, definitely it should motivate. The reason.
Dinesh, now we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear Mr. Dinesh.
Okay, Yogesh, can you hear me? What about, let me
Dinesh,
try.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Mr. Dua, I think definitely it will motivate. Yeah, Mr. Azadi has just joined. So Mr. Azadi has just joined. Yes, yeah, good evening. So I think you are in another session or you just finished that. Okay, thank you very much for joining on time. Okay. We can't hear you, Mr. Azadi.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So we have our co-panelists. They have already joined. Yogesh? So what we will do is, for the next 5 to 10 minutes, we will screen some of the feedback what children gave
No,
when
for a few minutes we couldn't hear Dinesh.
actually impacted all of them. And all children, whether they were in primary, they were in
He has to adjust the screen
they were
in
studying,
such a way that the voice reaches the.
all positively influenced.
Yeah, okay, just send him
their
a message.
So let's see what feedback each of the student has given. We have chosen few of them. So Yogesh, can you please share the screen?
Sure. That was it.
Yeah, can you please start with the formal slides that we have? Yogesh, can you please share the formal slides? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Baha'i Community of Bangalore, I extend a warm welcome to each one of you and thank you for joining in this important webinar. We are fortunate to have exemplary leaders with us who have, through their services, through their actions, through their commitment, have created a difference not only among the institutions that they are currently serving, but also among the society itself. So we are fortunate to have 5 different panelists, and each one of them, through years of service, years of sacrifice, and years of their commitment to the society, have created a difference. So can I request Yogesh to please put the speaker's profile? So our first panelist is an educationist. He is a technologist. He's no, just go back. He's also I think it's. Yogesh, can you please share the screen again? Yeah, just be there. Yes, yeah. So we are extremely honored and privileged to have Dr. Mohan Babu. Dr. Mohan Babu is currently serving as the principal of BMS IT and Management College, which is based out of Yelahanka. Dr. Mohan Babu, through his distinguished service, has also achieved a number of achievements which are very credible in nature. Right from his scholastic days, he has been constantly excelling in his studies, and he also was recipient of the doctoral internship at the United Nations University, the Netherlands. Now, because of his leadership and dedication in the last many years, BMS IT is one of the top colleges in Bangalore today. BMS IT has also achieved the NAC accreditation, and BMS IT is also the preferred choice of college for most of the young aspirants who intend to pursue their higher studies either in engineering, architecture, or management. Under his leadership and his direction, BMS also is currently having a good interface with the industry. Dr. Mohan Babu has presented a number of papers in United States, in Europe, and in Japan, and all of these he was honored to represent the government of India, and also he was honored to represent the World Bank. Dr. Babu is also a subject matter expert, and he is called as a resource person in number of industries, in the number of universities. So we are very fortunate to have Dr. Mohan Babu, who is currently serving as a principal of MSIT and Management, Yelahanka. Welcome, Dr. Mohan Babu.
Thank you.
Mr. Jawhar Singh Dua, though he is a chartered accountant by profession, his story is an inspiration for all the youngsters. Mr. Dua, along with his better half, Mrs. Dua, who is also an accomplished lawyer, sacrificed their life for the education of children. So he started a small children class of 3 children, and this children class over the last maybe 15 to 16 years, this journey has been a remarkable journey. So from 3 children, now they have 1,252 children, and they run 3 different institutions. Now the best part is all these 3 institutions are self-sustaining, and out of these 3, one of them, what the society runs, is completely free. That means out of these 3 schools, one school, what they run for the underprivileged girls, is completely free. And children, when they are studying in this school, they are not differentiated with the children who study in the other 2 schools. Now, his vision has been to teach with passion and also train the children to acquire vision. And the best part is there has been a constant focus, not only in terms of development of ethics, in development of character, but also whatever knowledge that children acquire during their scholastic period, to use it for the service of humanity. There are a number of inspiring experiences, stories, and how through the intervention of Mr. and Mrs. Jawhar Singh Dua, the communities have transformed, and today both of them are considered as role models in the area where they are currently serving. So we are extremely privileged, and we are happy that Mr. Jawhar Singh Dua had kindly accepted, and he is amongst us today. Please welcome Mr. Dua. Our next panelist is Professor Geeta Ravi, and Professor Geeta Ravi has been one individual who constantly balances between the scholastic education, between the industry requirements, between the requirements of youth, and also interface of current trends that are happening across. She is one force behind Indian Academy right from the day it was founded, and has been constantly encouraging, nurturing youth to take higher responsibilities, to adopt higher standards of learning, and through number of initiatives that she has taken, she has developed this institution into an institution which is currently a role model for many of the youths today who are in Bangalore and who currently aspire to gain quality knowledge. She also has designed and worked on the content generation in collaboration with Bangalore University, and she has been a participant, and she has also chaired a number of sessions nationally and internationally. So we are fortunate to have Professor Geeta. She believes that youth can move the world, and she has been constantly encouraging all the youth to be part of different programs, different conferences, and take responsibilities right from a young age. She is also an editor of a popular magazine called Institute. So we are fortunate to have Professor Geeta with us. Our next next panelist is a well-known speaker. He is a sought-after speaker in Bangalore, and the kind of work which Mr. Gopinath and the foundation which he heads, Dhwani Foundation, they do is extremely special in the sense they are the backbone for most of the NGOs currently in South India. So when it comes to laying of a framework, creating governance, helping an NGO to grow from one stage to the next stage, find the Dhwani Foundation is there. The quality work that Dhwani Foundation does on a short term and on a long term basis is extremely commendable. They ensure that individuals are empowered, institutions are empowered, because in many of the unorganized sector, we find that their challenges are multitude and they don't have access either to technology, they don't have access to wealth, they don't have access to system. Dhwani Foundation is one of the very few foundations today in India which can be benchmarked for any quality work today. Even the government of Karnataka relies on Dhwani Foundation. So very recently when the COVID cases started increasing, the government of Karnataka requested Dhwani Foundation and Mr. Gopinath to address the 5,000 panchayat heads across our states and embark on a different kind of an education so that each one of them are aware in terms of the precautions that they can take. Many of the training institutes, then the other educational institutes which are in rural area and which don't have access to technology, to systems, Dhwani comes in as an intervention and then they try to support. So through them, the capacity of the NGOs is built, and through the NGOs, either education or health related initiatives then reach the grassroots. So very commendable work that they have been doing since many years now. And because of this, Dhwani has become a very credible institution and people can actually reach out to them if they would want to lay out any foundation. So we are extremely fortunate to have Mr. Gopinath with us.
Thank you.
Our last panelist is engineer, a metallurgist by profession. However, his love and desire for education drew him to this field. Now, for more than 36 years, he has been managing, he has been running, he has been upskilling the Baha'i Academy at Panchgani after his higher studies in UK and Colombia. Mr. Azadi is a very well-known figure, and when it comes to initiatives like training, empowerment, and how to reach from one stage to the next stage, he has been constantly invited in number of countries. So Mr. Azadi has extensively toured in most of Asia, Africa, Europe, and other countries. So Mr. Azadi also serves, and in past also he has served on the board of a number of institutions which are highly credible in nature, and each of these institutions have contributed directly, indirectly to the process of education that currently our country has. Mr. Azadi also serves on a number of advisory committees and boards, and he has also been on the International Forum of Teachers of the UNESCO chairs in bioethics. There's a long list of achievements which Mr. Azadi has, but in the interest of time, I will restrict myself, and we are extremely happy to have Mr. Azadi along with us, along with the other 4 co-panelists today. So thank you very much, all of us, for joining. I would now request Yogesh to please, also ask maybe a question to all the participants. So they are part of the whole program. And after every panelist speaks for a few minutes and shares their opening remark, maybe you can ask a question which is relevant to today's session. And at the end of the session, you can share the polling, the results of. So Yogesh, can you go ahead with the first question that you have with you? Okay, so you have to answer. How do we answer this? Okay, we have to answer through a chat. What is the foundation of all human virtue?
Host and co-hosts cannot answer this.
Sorry?
The participants can answer this. The hosts and co-hosts cannot participate in the poll.
Okay, so the first question is, what is the foundation of all human virtue? Being studious, being truthful, being wealthy. So 93% of the respondents are saying truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. 5% say that being smart is the foundation for all the youth today. Then 2%, 9% of our participants say that being studious is the foundation of all human virtue. And 4% says acquiring wealth is the foundation of all human virtue. So do we stop the polling now? Okay, so maybe another few seconds. Okay, so the results are 85% of the audience feel truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtue. So as teachers, as educators, our focus should be on building the foundation of truthfulness among all our students and all the other okay. So Yogesh. I'll now request Dr. Mohan Babu to please share his opening remarks. Yogesh, can you please?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening to you all. Mr. Azadi specifically. Yeah, we have met some time back, in our institution. Okay, that's fine. Good evening to you all. Good evening to all the listeners, my co-speakers, specifically Mr. Jawahar ji, Mr. Dinesh ji, Mr. Gopinath ji.
Sir, a little louder, please.
Madam Geeta ji, and Mr. Azad ji. Thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion, specifically to be with these enlightened panelists and enlightened audience also. Thank you very much. Thank you. In fact, at the very outset, I must congratulate the organizers and the panelists for having chosen a very, very relevant, important, and current topic, I would say, for discussion. Very relevant one. Thank you very much. In fact, the topic goes like distinctive role. That means the role only teachers should play. Is that the meaning? Okay. Then of teachers. Teachers can be anybody, starting from school education to college education to university education, and the crisis. Crisis can be a huge variety. That means it's a huge topic, very important. Crisis, if we talk of, for example, the crisis that is impacting individuals, maybe somebody in the family dies, or somebody is abducted, some serious issue at home, or it could be a crisis which is impacting the family, maybe loss of honor, or maybe financial crisis or bankruptcy, or it could be affecting a region or a community. For example, landslides in Kodagu, or maybe flood in North Karnataka, or even it could be affecting something like nations and globe as such, like the way that we are all suffering with. I see that this particular pandemic is the backdrop of all this discussion today. That's the reason why let us focus only on the crisis created by this kind of pandemic across the globe. Yeah, that's what we have to be focusing upon. In fact, before I talk about the role of teachers in this kind of a crisis, let us also look at the status of teachers in this particular pandemic, first of all. In fact, teachers are nowhere different from anybody else in being impacted by this kind of a pandemic. I hope you all agree with me. Okay, many teachers across the globe have lost their jobs. Many of them, even if they have been able to maintain their jobs or manage to survive their jobs, in fact, with a deep cut in salary, they are. In fact, they themselves are finding to struggling hard to actually survive as well as keep their families afloat. That is the kind of a situation teachers are. This is on the professional front. But coming to the personal front, like anybody else who is affected by this kind of pandemic, you can see that teachers themselves would be suffering many times with this kind of a infection, or it could also be they might have lost some people at home, or maybe some other issues at home because of this pandemic. That means both in the personal front as well as the professional front, we see that teachers are also suffering. That means at the very first advice, or maybe in my opinion, teachers should first take care of themselves. They should be mentally and physically fit, and they should be optimistic. They should be looking forward to, they should be positive in order to take up the role very effectively. This is most important for us. And when teachers themselves are suffering so much, okay, their status is so much. And what about children? Naturally, children, they will be looking forward to great amount of advice and support by their teachers. Whoever the teacher could be, maybe school teacher or maybe university teacher, every student will be looking forward to that kind of guidance and support by the teachers over there. And it's very important that the teacher focuses on two important aspects in this kind of situation. To me, at least, I see that teacher must support a child in terms of in the physical, in the personal front or psychological front, at the same time the educational front. What is it that they can do in terms of personal front and psychological front? It's very important to be connected with the child all the time during this kind of a pandemic. We all know that most students are away from teachers now. Teachers are finding almost like fish out of water when there are no children around them. That's the situation of most teachers now. In fact, I see that kind of a situation in my institution also. When such is the case, we have to be somehow connected with the children. Fortunately, we have wonderful ICT available today, information and communication technologies. We should be linked with them to tell them what to do and what not to do, what to believe and what not to believe. You know, the kind of media propaganda that is happening. If people are to believe everything that comes, specifically the children, it will be horrific. We should, as the elders, advise them what to believe and what not to believe, how to keep the mental state healthy, okay, how to be engaging in good things. In fact, I saw a couple of slides prior to our presentation. Children have done wonderful work at homes. They have planted, saplings, they have grown some vegetables. That's lovely. In fact, somebody, maybe a parent or a teacher, might have advised those children to do that. That's very important, to keep oneself engaged in positive activities. And a teacher should always be there to help them. And at least he should convey to the student that I'm here to help you in any kind of situation. Don't worry. This is the assurance the children will be looking forward to from teachers. And coming to the educational front, of course, we all know that the education is totally disrupted in this kind of an unprecedented crisis. How is it that we can handle our continued education of the children, our imparting knowledge to children in this kind of a situation is a question. Of course, we all have seen the major changeover to ICT-based education or online education in the last few months. Maybe or may not be very effective, right? But people have had no choice but to move towards that. We have moved towards that, at least to make sure that the students are academically connected and that they don't get disassociated with the learning processes. It's very important to get connected with them, tell them what to learn and so on. Specifically, we should tell them the education environment might have changed, the education scenario or situation might have changed now. Maybe circumstances have changed, but the objective has still remained the same. It's very important that the learning objectives are should be the focus of the students. The personality development should be the focus of the students, irrespective of whether it is in-person classroom discussion or maybe online education. Maybe we may have to work with alteration of curriculum or the method it is delivered to students or the way we assess the children. These things may have to be changed, no doubt about that. But it's very important to not to lose the rigor in the education just because a pandemic has come. It's very important to give them confidence and make sure that they do not lose track of education or the academics that way. I believe that is very important. And most importantly, I tell you, these kinds of crises must be a part of the education itself. The reason being, this crisis specifically this crisis has given a lot of material for educational learning, personality development, and so on. In fact, we should not shy away from discussing these aspects in the class, even if it is not there in the syllabus, I would say. It's very important to discuss this. Let us not say, ignore or shy away from seeing the elephant in the classroom. It is there. Let us discuss it to the children. Let us look at their opinion, find their feelings, perceptions about this, what is their ideas about this. We can always look into these things. I would always encourage teachers to discuss these aspects in the class. In fact, any subject a teacher teaches in the class can be actually well driven into the minds of the children using this kind of pandemic. For instance, I'll tell you, if you're talking of moral education to children, there are so many moral activities and immoral activities happening with respect to this pandemic. You can see that the people who have earned money are actually taking care of the poor people. Especially, you would have probably seen the migrant workers being taken care of by so many people across the country. That's the great gesture being seen over there. But again, an ethical dilemma comes there. That means a person who might have earned the money illegitimately is now spending for a legitimate purpose. Now the question is it ethical or not? Children should discuss these aspects in the classroom. Let them form their own opinion. Let them form their own personality in this. That way you can see that, look at for example, COVID warriors we call, right? They're fighting day and night since 4 months in the hospitals, sacrificing all the personal things. But now when they're doing such a service over there, it was our responsibility of the public to be to be following all the guidelines given by the government, mask, wearing the mask, or maybe having the safe distance, or maybe sanitizing and so on. Are we doing it? Is it a moral question or immoral question? Is it a moral question or not? That's what is to be answered over there. Because when they're doing something for us, we should try to reduce the workload on them. But what is it that we're doing now here? Likewise, you can see so many issues. For example, we give online examination to children. Are we trusting the children there that they don't copy? Or can the students do their work with integrity? What is moral education here? That means every aspect, whether it is moral education or even for that matter, let's say technological education, technology development, innovation, entrepreneurship. Are we not seeing so many new ideas coming up from people today? New sanitizers we are seeing, new sanitizer dispensing machines we are seeing robots carrying drug and food to the hospitals we are seeing, right? We are seeing new types of masks. Are they not innovations? Are they not leading to some good businesses for people? Yes, we can teach entrepreneurship through this. We can teach anything, even politics for that matter. What is happening between US and China? What is happening between China and India with respect to this pandemic? That means a teacher must appreciate every crisis is a source of learning for everybody, and hence it must be a part of education to everybody. Children must understand crisis as a pop-up here and there in their life. Crisis itself is not life. Crisis will come and pass away. We need to be maintaining our stability of mind throughout in life. This is what is to be taught to children, and children should be able to develop self-confidence in dealing with kind of issues. They should be coming out with new ideas, innovations, and technologies to deal with these kinds of issues, provide solutions to the people who are really suffering from these kinds of situations, right? And develop positivity and radiate it to everybody else, so that other people also take up this kind of crisis in a relatively not so serious way, but within their control. Like that's the kind of an attitude we need to build. These are the things that we should be looking into when we teach the children. But at the same time, as a last point I want to make, the education institutions must understand that the role of a teacher is not ad hoc role. It is very important to have the teacher's role integrated with the education system. When I say this, education system must be designed to deal with these kinds of crises also. Without providing the ability to children to handle these kind of crises, right? That won't be a good education at all. That's the reason why you see so many suicides, even in IITs. In the last 5 years, you could see 50 people have actually committed suicides. Why? This is a big question to me also. The reason is we have not taught them the life skills. We have only encouraged them to study, work hard, get good grades, and so on. That's really not education. We need to develop such kind of skills with which we can actually handle the life's crises and challenges, come out with practical and feasible solutions, make everybody's life much comfortable. And whatever skills that we learn in the education institutions must be used over there. This is what I believe is the education. And for this purpose, the education system is to be designed like that. And teachers must be trained to handle the crisis. For instance, very recently I saw in a college, one of the students committed suicide in the late in the evening. There was nobody except a couple of teachers. Now, do you expect, who is to handle this kind of a crisis now? There are so many students in the hostel. There is so much of panic around. How is it that the students can handle? A couple of teachers who were there could handle it so well that they could communicate to the parents of the child, they could communicate to hospitals, they communicate to police. Every arrangement was made, and also they formulated a committee to inquire into this case, and they made all effort to quell down the kind of panic that was created over there. This is the beauty of education, I say. I would say that the institutions must train all the teachers to handle these kinds of crises and make sure that this is only a passing by incident and it's not life itself. If you do that, many students can be saved from suicides and such kind of atrocities on themselves itself. I'm sure that the good teachers can actually shape the entire world by building excellent human resource with strong moral values also. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm looking forward to participate in the final QA at the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mohan Babu. Before we go to the next panelist, can I ask the moderator to please state the next question, please, so that all the audience can participate? Can we have the next poll question? Okay, so the next question has come on the screen, and audience are requested to please participate and vote for this. You can be responsible for the education of children only if you are a parent, a friend, a teacher, or all of the above. So 5% of the audience feel that if you're a friend, then you are responsible for education of children in your community. Okay, so the majority of them feel that even if you are a friend, you're a parent, you're a teacher, you are still responsible for the moral and the spiritual education of the child in your neighborhood, in your community. Okay, good. So 94% of the audience who have participated in the poll feel that each one of us, we are responsible for all the children in our neighborhood or in our community. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we'll go to our next panelist, Mr. Jawar Singh Dua. And, as I mentioned, his journey is actually an inspiration for all of us, irrespective of our age. What he started, he and of course, madam, what they started as a small children class of 3 children. Now, they run 3 different institutions with almost 1,252 children. So, Mr. Dua, please, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Dinesh Rao, sir, thank you so much. Hello and good evening. Dr. Mohan Babu has correctly pointed out all of us are teachers. At one point of time or other, in formal environment or informal environment. Formally as college teachers or school teachers, informally as 89% of the poll says, as parents, brothers, sisters, or friends. Some we seek for education. Often we learn simply by observing. 75% of the time we learn by observing. So I will refer to everybody as teachers. So everybody as teachers to us as we have to preach as well as lead in the time of crisis. To set an example, just talking is not enough. You need to portray it by your conduct also. So let me share a true story. 12 young boys aged between 11 and 16 years went to explore a seaside cave after a football match. It was one of the boys' birthday. They bought chips, cokes, and other eatable stuff. Rode on their cycle, backpacks, packed it, threw it outside, and excitedly went inside the cave, deep inside. They were so excited and full of laughter, they never heard the rain. The sea became rough, pushing them 3 kilometers inside. The cave complex was hit by flash flood, leaving them trapped underground. The mighty sea rose and blocked their exit. Just imagine how scared and confused they must be. Nature can be benevolent, but if you are unprepared, it can be merciless also. You jump in a sea without a life jacket, it becomes merciless. These boys were hungry and lost all sense of time. Soon it became dark. Amongst them was their 25-year-old coach. We can also call him a teacher. He took hold of the situation, calmed the kids, made them do meditation, rationed whatever small food they have, even gave his part of food to the children, ultimately ensured miraculous escape of everyone after 16 days. So when physically present, this is a role of a teacher. Any guesses where this happened? This happened in Thailand, June 2018. The coach actually was a monk, taught them meditation, made them survive on the rainwater. However, in our present situation, the presence is virtual. We are not physically present and the presence is virtual. So the first and the primary role of a teacher is to establish effective communication channel between all these stakeholders. This channel has to be asymmetrical. Now, what do I mean by asymmetrical? This channel doesn't have to be asymmetrical. If you go to a doctor just writes a prescription. That information is asymmetrical. We do not know about the salt. We do not know the counter products available. We do not know pros and cons of the medicine. In fact, we cannot compare and choose. The information should be factual, freely available, and multidimensional. Most importantly, it should be two ways. Our communication as of now with the audience is asymmetrical. I am just speaking and everybody else is just listening. But I soon hope Mr. Dinesh Rao will make this two ways. Once links are established, the joy of teaching will automatically guide us. It's such a theoretical experience. If you teach, you are just away in a different world connected with children only. The teacher should ensure all communications are well-researched, exhaustive, and supported by data. In December, Government of India undertook a pan-India drive to inject more than 36 crore children aged between 9 months to 15 years with MR, measles, rubella injections. We all must have heard that. Now, for a school management, there were two models. One was, do not discuss anything. Just get the children, get the government official one day and tag, get everybody injected, get done away with it. Some of the schools did that, but soon parents came to know about that. The percentage of presence drastically dropped. The schools were able to achieve only 60 to 65% target. The other model was to take, which we adopted, was to take parents into confidence. We provided written data, written information, what is the virus, why it survives in the host body, how many children got injected till date, how safe it was. We made parents and students into MR warriors and requested them to educate others. Once they started educating others, they become more receptive. There was free flow of informations. Doubts were cleared and fear erased. Only knowledge can erase your fear. As a result, we were able to achieve 106% of our targets. Parents not only got their children who were studying with us injected, but they brought the children of the maids and the peers and their siblings also to get injected. Honest two-way communication is established. There is no crisis. Once you have an honest two-way communication, there is no crisis. It is only different circumstances with different opportunities and different challenges and can be dealt with. Any child who is in open conversation with you will always tell his fears, will always seek for knowledge. Human nature is like that. We are seekers. We seek knowledge. It is up to teachers, and everybody is a teacher, to provide this knowledge. Once knowledge is provided, there is no fear, and anything can be dealt with. Thank you so much. That is all I want to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. J.S. Dua. Before we go to the next panelist, I'll request the host to share the next question to the audience, and it's an audience poll. Audience are requested to participate, and I also request the panelists to please also have a look at the chat box. There are certain questions which are directed to, maybe some of you are being displayed by the audience. So one question which has come is that, is it possible education itself can be made from a more of a public service, rather than you distinguish a child's education between private, government, and social economic? Can it be made one standard education which can encompass all? Maybe one of the panelists can answer later. But now the question which has come on our chat box is, this is a poll. Children have right to moral education if they are living in city, village, suburb, or anywhere. So please go ahead and answer. Which children have right to moral education? Those who live in city, those who live in village, those who live in suburbs, or those who live anywhere? And Mr. Dua, we have a couple of participants from Thailand. So I think they'll be happy to know about the experience that you shared. In the meantime, audience, please go ahead and vote for this question. So 97% of the audience feel that irrespective of where the child is, he or she has to have exposure to moral education. That means the fundamental to all our learning is moral science. I think that's the belief which most of the participants share, and that's what the poll results, yeah, it's still going on. Okay. So is it done? Okay, so the polling is done, and majority of them feel that wherever the child is in city or the child is in village, in whatever setting the child is, the upbringing is, he or she has to have proper moral education for its holistic development. Thank you. Thank you. Our next panelist is Professor Geeta Ravi, and Professor Geeta, has been going out of her normal course in terms of supporting the youth, encouraging the youth, and also ensuring that all of them are aligned to whatever has been prescribed in latest as per the industry standards. So Professor Geeta, I request you to please share a few words from your side.
Good evening to all the learned and experienced panelists, Dr. Mohan Babu, Mr. Jawad Singh Dua, K.N. Gopinath, Mr. Lisan Azadi, Dinesh Rao, Chetan Parekh, organizing committee of this program, Baha'i family, and the participants. Please accept my salutation. I thank the director and Baha'i Foundation and Mr. Dinesh for inviting me here as a panelist for this particular program. With due respect to you all, I would like to throw some light on my profession as a teacher. I was very impressed with Dr. Mohan Babu and Mr. Dua's experiential explanation given here. I do agree with all those points. Otherwise, we cannot be a good teacher at all. With that, I would just go with my probably analysis of a teacher. The word teacher is symbolic. This particular word is associated with two symbols. Symbols are kindness and love. And this profession demands many responsibilities. And the striking result of this particular result is the word success. Everybody connects the word success with the teacher. Before I could just throw light on my experience of teaching or maybe my way of putting it as a teacher, I request you all to just pay attention on my few questions I have here. How does a teacher be a successful person in the profession? Do we have to share our knowledge as educators? Do we have to understand our students and counsel them? Do we have to teach them the ethics or values for life? Do we have to provide them the best content and make them learn as facilitators? Do we have to play the role of pathfinders? My appeal to all to reflect on these questions. As APJ Abdul Kalam said, great teachers emanate out of knowledge, passion, and compassion. Students don't care how much a teacher knows. They would definitely care for how much we care about them. But it doesn't stop us teaching and delivering the best. The emphasis of a teacher lies in the attitude on students also. A teacher with his teaching methods, with his attitudes, behavior, provides students to gain mentally healthy personality. And we need to project in the entire world. And it should be a unforgettable traces on them. It's a big responsibility, but we do enjoy it. A teacher is a person who enables a student to reach cognitive in a very scientific way, sensory, and a behavioral aim. And we have to reach all the ranges which is determined by the educational institutions or the education system. Yes, we do that and we do enjoy and we take pride in being a teacher. I think for my knowledge, for the experience that I have for 29 years of teaching, I feel that a dedicated teacher goes beyond just teaching in a class. Giving lectures, making exams, giving grades, all these are quite common things which we have to fit in. And apart from this, as teachers, we have to take extra responsibilities. We do take responsibilities in organizing, managing, counseling, observing the students very keenly and hand-holding them, evaluating, and just going with them and reach them to the destiny where they have to reach and leave them to lead their life happily. That is the contentment of a teacher. Yes, all of us understand that teacher has a very important role to influence the society. We create probably an ambience and we lay a foundation towards the future of society. That is what Mohan Babu sir said. Dua sir also said in a different way by giving an example of a Korean teacher who was there in the cave for such a long time and helped them morally and physically. And it was a live example. Yes, we have so many instances that we have come that we are there for their crisis. Yes, definitely. And that is the joy of being a teacher. I think nobody else would get and gain the joy of being a teacher, reaching people when they are in crisis. And that is the contentment of a teacher. A good teacher has 8 basic characteristics. Those are knowledge, decision making, being critical, problem-solving ability, self-understanding, and self-correction. When we correct ourselves in front of a student, then student knows that we are humane and we are realistic to the approach, and they would learn the same. Reflecting students and recognizing them about their qualities. And we need to reach the students according to their learning needs. And we need to expose them to the new findings in education system or communication abilities or wherever the opportunities are there. We need to give them an exposure or tell them about it, enhance their knowledge in that particular field. That is a big role of a teacher. Like, how do we manage it? If you are into teaching, you can manage it wonderfully. You can definitely manage it. And we all know the word education is very powerful. It contributes to an individual, it contributes to the growth of the entire country, takes essential role in developing a society. It, as we have all the proven people in the panel, like all these panelists who are there along with me have achieved quite a lot for the development of the society. That is only because of the education. That is because of the base that we have with a strong education system and a better exposure that we have, and we have learned from each other. That is a quality of education which increases the efficiency in governance, and it helps us in improving our productivity level and prosperity too. It definitely helps us to know about the cultural richness of the country, and we do contribute towards the national income in different ways by educating our children, by putting them in a different mode. And probably, like when it comes to the income part, teachers are not being taken into consideration, but we have a role to be played in projecting and providing the students who can be more productive in the national level. So that is the role of a teacher. So education is incomplete without teachers. Probably hence teachers' role. I would say that teachers' role is vital in molding the future of the country. As we all know and we have considered, educational institutions are considered as temple or a place of worship. It is a place where consciousness is aroused and enlightened, purified and strengthened. That's how we build our responsibility. Before I could close my remarks, I would just share a couple of quotes with you all. One is of V.S. Mather. No system of education, no syllabus, no methodology, no textbook can rise above the level of its teacher. If a country wants a quality education, it must have quality teachers. And I would end with Aristotle's line, educating the mind without educating the hearts is no education at all. We need to reach the hearts of the people and make them beautiful human beings to spread the probably the array of knowledge, or you call it as aura of knowledge, you call it as the bliss of life, whatever it is. That is the beauty of being a teacher. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Professor Geeta Ravi. It was indeed very inspiring. Before we go to the next panelist, can I request the moderator to please put on the next poll question for the audience? And I request all the audience to please take part. Okay, the question has come on our screen.
So,
the best method for children to learn is through experience, is through computer games, is through action, or is through mugging. 29% of the audience feel that it's through action. Action will help us, help the children learn better. 60% of them feel experiential learning is one of the best methods for children to learn. There is almost a tie. 59% feel that experiential learning is better, and 43% feel action-oriented learning is better. Okay, so the poll is still going on. We'll wait for another couple of seconds.
there are more than 100 people, around 110 people watching the same webinar on YouTube, and they're also giving their answers there. There is almost equal votes to experience and action there too.
Okay.
And the people who are watching on YouTube, they are commending and appreciating whatever the panelists have mentioned in their talk so far.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you. That's indeed very encouraging. Thank you. So we'll go to our next panelist, Mr. Gopinath. Mr. Gopinath works in the area where it's extremely difficult for normal professionals to go, commit, and deliver. He's the man, and Dhwani Foundation is the institution behind more than 100 NGOs which are successfully working today in South India. And because of their short-term and long-term intervention, all these NGOs are able to comply not only with the requirements of the government, but also meet the expectation of the people at the grassroots. So somebody who is connected with the grassroots and understands their requirement and strategizes and implements the program. We have with us Mr. Gopinath. Mr. Gopinath, over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dinesh Rao and the team for such a wonderful session is organized from all of you. And it was great listening to the three co-panelists. So I asked Dinesh Rao, why am I in this? Because I am not a teacher. Neither I am not part of any educational institution. So it's actually my privilege to listen to all the three professors so far who spoke. I'm not a teacher, first of all, and but I do actually have an opportunity to interact with several education institutional heads. Also, I have an opportunity to really look at largely a rural setups, also children living in the very, very vulnerable circumstances. So I will probably share from that perspective. Also, I'm a parent of a very teenage boy, right? So what's going on now with the education of him? So without going to school, sitting at home, and what I hear from so many other organizations who are actually working with the different set of children living in different circumstances. So I just remember many A few years ago, I was reading this. Somebody has done a study and asked graduates after several years, what do you remember about your school? So what is that one or two things really keeps you still remember about your teachers? So finally, what I understand from that, most said, actually, I don't remember anything about the subject which was taught to us in the schools. But what we all remember, the moral that teachers told us, the stories from the life they actually shared with us, and the time we spent out of the classrooms, that actually vividly we remember. And actually, that actually made us to really relate to our schools or to our teachers. So it was very interesting for me to look at from that perspective. I think coming to today's circumstances, I see probably as teachers committee there, to my mind, I see two sets of teaching committee currently struggling with two sets of problems. Of course, what I call there is a set of teachers community dealing with the children who perhaps have access to technology at this particular junction. There is still some time for them either to the different technology more to reach out to the children. But I see other set of teachers, particularly who are working in the government schools, who are working in the very remote villages, struggling they don't know how to reach out because the children have very limited access to get onto any medium of the current demand of getting into online learning. So I actually keep hearing to a lot of teachers who are from the remote villages. They all want to reach out to children. They struggle today. How do we reach out? Because the kids do not have access. They don't have computer. They don't have internet. Families cannot able to afford to them. Even if the family have one computer in that village, the internet doesn't work. So many issues. I think the current challenge, there is two sets of teaching community to my mind, actually trying to see how to really still help. The one set, the struggle is we are unable to reach out to the children. There's another set of teachers, perhaps probably their students are little lucky where they have at least some access to their children, or children do have some access to their teachers. So that I think all of you agree the current situation. But maybe let's look at it. What is that education to my mind, or what I see education to a children? There are a couple of things just I want to share with maybe my observations or what I think probably the education actually is to my mind. I think some of you already spoke about it. I think the first thing I'm always looking at, how do we connect our kids to the communities? So, because if the children could able to have some experience away from the classroom and see whether they could really engage into any sort of community work. It could be maybe a few days of volunteering into a particular work in a village, or it could be just an exposure visit to go around and see the difficult types of people, how they live, or it could be interviewing few farmers, right? So one thing for me, how can we really see children really get an opportunity to interact and understand by actually interfacing with the communities? Can we do that? Can we create little more opportunity space for children? So I think Dr. Mohan Babu said it so nicely that that's where I see actually children can relate to the experiences of it. That's one thing probably makes a lot of difference to my mind. And I was also looking at, is there a possibility for children to take even a small project, not related to just academics, where they could even get onto a week, 10 days. This could be done to my mind from even early age children. So where they will have a little understanding to go deeper into any subject of their choice. So it could be, okay, let me go on. In fact, I was actually observing few schools where they see children actually going on a real projects. Maybe the schools from the elite family children going to school, they send into the rural villages to see, okay, can you really go and do a week project in a rural village and really understand how the rural village children actually look at education, or what are their struggles and what are their joys actually, right? So is there a method for us to see how can we really engage children to get onto some specific small projects? In a year, can it be done at least once? And can it start early as possible, as early as possible for children? So that's another area for me actually really builds in. So the third aspect to me is to see where are we bringing the more of moral values? How do you bring more moral values to the education? I think all three spoke very well about it, so I don't need to explain again. But what I'm actually looking at it as teachers, how can I, to my mind, it's not just a teacher. It's not just a teacher can really do everything. How can teachers and perhaps the parents together can we see how do you bring in moral values? Actually, I'm looking at this particular situation of this pandemic where children are actually at home. I see a lot of opportunities for us to teach a lot of moral values to the children or even a lot of other things to the children. So how can we really look at it? Our children really get an opportunity at this particular juncture to even support at home and even take up a small responsibility and actually see whether they could spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes every day, actually to really see to support to somebody else, right? So is there any different avenues for us to see small occasions or small tasks, which could make children also to realize and understand various moral values? So that is another very important for me, because for me the education is, of course, it's academics. Of course, children need to get into subjects, but will there be a more value if they can able to relate to other things, to their communities, their society, and to the moral values, right? Then I see there is probably a very richness that can actually come into the children's life. Because ultimately, I think Professor Geeta said very nicely, what is that actually we want end of the day when the child really gets out of the school or college or university, right? What is actually really we want, right? So actually what we want end of the day, good human being. A good human being who can relate to society, a good human being who can relate to the problems of the society, and a person who can actually see what can I do, right? How can I be some help, some support, right? So if that can happen throughout our education, I think all of us have done our job, right? So because I think the current generation have so much opportunity actually. I am actually really not worried about the future generation getting jobs or earning. I think there are plenty of opportunities for that. But I think my worry is how can we really make all our kids to really look at it? How do you connect to your society, people around you, your community issues, right? Whatever the profession you take up, will you be able to relate to your local issues, your local problems, and more particularly, people who are in a vulnerable situation? What can you do, right? So it need not be very huge, big problem solving, big projects. It could be very simple, doable at their capacity. If we can achieve that much, I think we have done a job. We have done our job, and that's what society requires more and more, right? So one or two points on this whole pandemic. So I see actually sometimes I feel so sad for children, because I keep seeing my teenage boys sitting at home all the time now is an online classes, but so much they are missing, right? They are missing peers, which is their life actually, and they are missing their playground. They are actually missing their travel in their school bus. So such a fantastic, joyful moments currently actually taken out, which is actually sad, right? I think the biggest stress to my mind children are actually facing is all these things, which they are unable to really go out, play in the ground, meet their peers, and walk around in the campus, right? So talk to their teachers. So this is actually a sad part in the teacher's life. So how can we really, is there a replacement? I don't know. I think it's quite tough actually to replace any of these things. But is there, I was just observing my son's school does a very interesting thing with the children. They have something called a dialogue class. So this is apart from the academic classes, they have once in 2 weeks a dialogue. So I found it's quite interesting. So the dialogue they're talking about anything. They pick up any particular subject and there every child start participating and they get into some of the maybe a current issues or something bothering children or something they all think very important in our society. So I find some of these things could be a possible ways to really help children, particularly at this pandemic where they do not have many things they used to enjoy. There should be some method like this. So it could be a dialogue class to talk anything what child wants to really talk about it. It could be just open session. Children could actually ask any questions, right? Nothing specific to on the subject. So whether these are some of these things we could actually think about so that children still feel they are somewhere connected. So for me, still a larger issue, probably very eminent professors and educationists are sitting here. It looks like this pandemic can probably look like going to stay for some time. I think the children, to my mind, the schools or children are actually the one who are actually really got stuck now, right? Particularly, I'm worried about children in rural areas and particularly children, migrant workers, children and children living in the very poor situations. Is there a method as educationalists, all of us could really see to engage and support, particularly the teacher community who are actually working with such children? So there is something around that. I would actually appeal to all of you, not just to the panelists. I see so many other people who are in this group, and if you all of you can really able to find some way, reach out to such teachers, I think then it will be great. So with these few things, I don't know whether I really made any sense to this whole thing about education because I'm not an educationalist. I do hope a few points is what I could able to relate to this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gopinath. It was very useful. It was indeed very useful, and your perspectives are very different because you have that grassroots connect. And one question which has come on the chat box from a participant is that there are so many NGOs and there are so many government schools. So all of these seem to have some kind of funding, but in terms of efficiency, not all are equally efficient. But then you have the online education like the apps, Byju's and others, what I think some examples they have given. So what is the trade-off? Maybe this is a question during the Q&A, which somebody for one of the participants has asked. You can, just think over this, during the Q&A, maybe you can just respond to this question.
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So can we go to the next poll question, please, for the audience? Okay, among the greatest of all services that can possibly be rendered by a man or woman. Okay, among the greatest of all services that can be rendered by a man is dash. Earn. So there are 4 options: earn large amount of wealth, dedicate our time for education and training of children, build and sustain Fortune 100 company, or work in an MNC. So, okay, so which is the greatest of all the services that each one of us we can do while we are in this physical plane? Okay, so this is a question and there are 4 options. So the participants have started polling and most of them, I think almost all of them, they say that the greatest of all services that possibly we can render is education and training of children. And 4% also believe that if we are able to build and sustain Fortune 100 companies, that also is a service which each one of us we can render. Okay. Yeah, so we still have another few seconds while everyone is voting. And what I understand is online or YouTube, there are more than 100 participants who are also active there and who also have been appreciative of all the comments and suggestions and views that the panelists have shared, and they also are sharing some questions online. So one of the questions which I got just now is, What is the role of an educator in providing social cohesion? I think one of the panelists can take later. Yeah, but this is over now. So I think everybody, majority seems to agree that the greatest of all services that we can render is education and training of children. Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So we'll go to our next panelist, Mr. Azadi. Mr. Azadi has been working with a very different spectrum of participants, right from rural to national to international and to semi-formal in different kinds of education and training and content development, and also being part of so many other boards and universities. So I'll request Mr. Azadi to please share his views. And in the meantime, if there are any other questions that come over chat or over the online, I'll share it with each one of you. Mr. Azadi, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rao. A very good evening, dear friends. It was such a delight to listen to the very eminent speakers before me. Dr. Mohan Babu, wonderful to see you again here. We had Mr. Jawahar Singh Dewasser. It was great to listen to you. We had Professor Geeta. We had Mr. Gopinath. It's really so wonderful to listen to all these excellent speeches that I think we have to put them all on the paper and keep connecting the dots together. And I think the purpose of today's, discussion will have been fulfilled. I'd like to tell you for, briefly that the institution which I represent, the Baha'i Academy, is actually an institution which is a recognized institution of Shivaji University in Maharashtra, and the focus is, research and training in the field of value education for institutions of higher learning. So the Baha'i Academy offers programs and education in universal human values with the focus of self-empowerment and contribution to the betterment of society. So it is basically an action-oriented program. It's basically a program for, capability building and doing something practical to one's life. You said about the social cohesion. In fact, just 10 days back, we had an international conference on education for social cohesion. So I'm very happy that social cohesion has again come up here, because that is definitely a very important aim of education. Now, dear Dr. Mohan Babu sir mentioned that education should be education for life. And really, this is so important because we have kind of missed that main aim of education, this focus of education. I'll try to share with you one slide, if I can. Yes. Now, since you are all from the field of education, you must be, do you see the slide? Is the slide visible?
No, not yet, Mr. Azadi.
Not yet visible.
Yeah, it is about to
just
load. Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
now we
yes,
can see the
yes.
slide.
It has come. All right. So you are familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, as you see, okay, it begins with physiological needs, basic needs of breathing, food, water, etc. And then it goes to safety needs, which is about, employment, resources, family needs, health, property. Then it goes to higher level of needs, which is about love and belongingness. And then it goes to still higher level of needs, which is esteem, which is confidence, which is achievement, which is respect for others, respect for oneself. And then ultimately, self-actualization, which talks about morality, creativity, talks about problem solving, lack of prejudices, acceptance of facts, etc. Now, somehow, we are mostly engaged in the first two levels of education, basically related to physiological and also maybe some safety issues. And since we are so much oriented towards examination only, and we begin with that and we end with that, and we run extra tuition classes for that, and whatever we do just goes around it, somehow we have actually missed out the fact that education is not only related to physical aspects of life. Yes, it's very important, no doubt, that the first category type of education is physical education, which relates to, you know, one's physical well-being, health, hygiene, etc. But then there is other kind of education, which is human education, training of mind. And that's what our colleges and schools also are engaged to that. When we talk of physical, we mostly limit it to sports, which is not really all physical education. It is just one component. And again, we make it so competitive that even the purpose of that physical education is lost. And we get engaged into some level of learning of sciences and arts, basically to pass the exams. But then the third level, which is reaching a human actualization, development of all the hidden potentials within the person. And all the speakers, spoke about the need for value education, the need for development of moral abilities, because that's what life ultimately is about, relationships. So that has somehow been missed out. Therefore, we see more of suicides happening. Therefore, we see so much of psychological pressures on the children, on the students. And this is on rise. And especially now that we are living in the time of pandemic situation, we are in the lockdown situation, the crisis that we are facing has affected all these levels, right from deprivation in the physical, aspects, right from the psychological matters, and the self-actualization, of course, has been most affected by it. So now as teachers, I think the first thing is really necessary for us to, come in terms with that what is the basic purpose of a teacher? We talk of a purpose of education, wonderful, examples were given by dear Singh Saab. It was given by dear Professor Geeta, was given so beautifully by Mr. Gopinath, by Dr. Mohan. I remember, a very interesting statement made by one of the education commissions, Chattopadhyay Commission, which said, the primary task of teacher. Now, when we talk primary task of teacher, usually our minds go to covering the syllabus. Somebody said, please don't cover the syllabus, please uncover the syllabus. But anyhow, keeping the joke aside, we are so concerned with covering the syllabus. But the commission does not say that. The commission does not say high percentage of performance. The commission does not say that the education should result into many events happening in the college and the school. We are used to tick marking. Okay, this event also done, that event also done. They say the primary task of teacher is man-making. Namely, the making of the Indian of tomorrow. So when we talk of man-making, that means a very holistic person who is not only able to take care of his physical needs, but also his psychological needs and his moral and spiritual needs. So when we talk of every child who is born is actually like a mine of lots of abilities, capacities, talents, qualities, which are like gems within that mine. So our role as teachers, friends, is to allow that mind first to be opened up. Sometimes because we prefer thinking like this, and we prefer the students also think like this. Don't see around, just repeat what I say and memorize and reproduce what you are told. And even we go to the extent of giving them notes. Therefore, the minds are never opened. Therefore, the gems remain, the talents are not developed. So then the holistic education does not actually take place. And since this is the tradition that we have, been practicing generation after generation, I still use the notes which I have inherited from my grandfather, because it has gone through many generations. It has proved to be very good and wonderful, So with that mindset, it's not just not possible to really answer any crisis, to really becoming the source of hope and inspiration to the students, to turn to us as teachers and find solution for their day-to-day, problems of life. Maximum, we may answer their academic questions. So, friends, we as teachers have to come out of our comfort zone. Let me just share with you another very interesting slide, which I hope I can share it with you. Okay, this is the earlier slide, if you are able to see. Yes, all right. Now, the next slide. Yes, has the next slide come?
Yes.
Okay. Now, it talks about comfort zone. Now, it is where we feel safe and in control. That is where most of us as teachers prefer to be. But then in that zone, there is no growth and maturing in the comfort zone. It can become, for us, not just comfortable, but also stagnant. Beyond the comfort zone comes the fear zone. That is where we hang on the opinions of others and find any excuses to remain frozen in place, no change. So we are frightened. Lack of confidence is there. We find excuses that, no, that cannot be done. One of the honorable vice chancellors was speaking in one program at the academy some time ago. He said, actually, as soon as we talk of change in the curriculum and updating the curriculum, unfortunately, the first people who oppose are the teachers who don't like the curriculum to be changed because you feel insecure, I'm already used to the curriculum, so why to change it? I have to learn new things. Anyway, we can cross the fear zone only when we enter the learning zone. And we learn new skills and navigate challenges and solve problems. And if this becomes, friends, the attitude of us as teachers, only then we are able to convey it. We are able to, nurture the same attitude in our students. If we become learners, and once we are in the learning zone, and we are mastering learning, we can cross it over and go to the growth zone. That is where we reinvent ourselves, friends. I tell you, most of us, because we are the products of the same education system that has focused so much on examination, even our own hidden talents, abilities, capacities are not yet really developed the way they should. We get new dreams when we are in the growth zone. And aspirations, we get new aspirations, something fresh that inspires us to be our better selves. So, beloved friends, as teachers, we have to reach to that zone. Then only we are able to open the minds of the children and allow them to learn. Now, if you are in that zone, friends, then we will not be of the mindset to give notes to the children. As a teacher, I will not be the centerpiece of the classroom. So you enter the classroom, you are in front, and you have the students sitting all facing you. Well, because you are the all-knowing. You have done the research. You know, they don't know. Therefore, they remain in that state. But if we are able to introduce participatory learning in the classroom, friends, let the children discuss with each other. And when they become elders, they reach a high school, they reach the college, the university, you can't believe what a magic it is. Participatory learning, cooperative learning. It is empowering, friends. Lectures, the one-way traffic does not always empower. Because an attitude is also communicated along with one-way traffic. That I know, you don't know, you better be silent. In one of the workshops here at the academy, I asked the teachers, what is your favorite classroom? And many of them said, a pin drop silent class. I said, well, that is my worst classroom. If you like pin drop silent class, then maybe graveyard is the best place to go and give a class, because that is absolutely silent. I said, my favorite class is where there is noise. Not a noise of chaos, not a noise of disorder, but the noise when the students are engaged in discussing the problems. You enjoy going around and listening to them. One of the teachers from a Masters of Social Work who had attended one of the workshops, we visited his college after a couple of months. And in the workshop, one of the elements of teaching, besides human values and capable building, was about interactive teaching learning methods. And he said, sir, I'm enjoying now my class, because I see when I finish the class, I feel, yes, the students have learned something because of interactivity, because of cooperative learning. Another beautiful example that our dear Gopinath sir gave, and I really want to endorse it, is experiential learning, where you learn through experiencing, through practicing. And very difficult concepts can be learned much easier when experiential learning is used. Now, there are hundreds of ways of experiential learning. It could be scenario-based learning. It could be educational games. It could be many, depending on what subject you want to introduce. There are ways of experiential learning. So as teachers, we are able to, be innovative, a suitable experiential learning activity for that class. I'm not saying that lecturing should be stopped. Of course not, Sometimes you have to introduce a very brand new subject that the students do not know. So obviously, you have to introduce it, maybe a short lecture of say 15, 20 minutes, but then that has to be followed by workshops. So this, friends, interactive learning, we have done it right from standard 1 in our school up to the postgraduate students, even in the PG coursework classes. It works with every group, especially if your audience are more adult, I mean college level students, then definitely experiential learning, they will definitely be more active. And then you said, I think one of the dear, yes, Dr. Mohan mentioned and some other speakers about preparing the students for a life of service. Ultimately, if those who graduate from our schools, if those who graduate from our colleges, universities are not of service to the country, to the world, to humanity, irrespective of race, nation, religion, language, then what have we done? If they're engaged only with, their own fat packages and their own perks and their own personal growth, then possibly we have not been good exemplary teachers, and the method we have used in our colleges and schools have not empowered them. Therefore, here comes the need of the methodology called service learning activities. And the service learning activities, friends, is being practiced in many advanced universities across the globe, even at the schools. And that is where the students learn the application of their subject in the form of some service project for the community. I don't want to get into the details of service and activity, but my request is that please check it out. If you are not familiar with service and activity, please check it out. Whether you are teaching English language, whether it's a mathematics teacher, whether it is a class of thermodynamics, whether it is a class of psychology, no matter what class, no matter what subject, there is always the chance, the possibility, the innovation in creating such community service projects, which are the need of the community and connects the classroom learning to service. And not only academic learning of the students improves, but also the attitude of service you are generating, the joy of service you are generating. I'm so thankful to the organizers for this wonderful session that you have, initiated, especially at this time of, lockdown. There is a lot of new opportunities, friends, for all of us, whether it is teaching, learning, whether it is research, whether it is extension activities, friends, all can be done despite the lockdown. We just have to use our creativity, innovation, discuss it among the colleagues, with the students, and you see there's no end to what really we can do as teachers in this time of pandemic. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Azadi. That was quite inspiring. Respected panelists, I have received almost 25 questions over the chat box and online. I will not be able to take all these questions because in the interest of time. Before I hand over for closing to Dr. Chetan Parekh, I'll ask each one of you one question which is directly connected to you. So, Mr. Dua, I think the first question is to you, that in your school, which has different grades of children who come in, some from the richer strata, some from the poorer strata, how do you balance the moral education? How do you ensure that the moral education is well balanced? I think that's the question which has come on the chat box.
Sir, it's simple. Children learn only through repetition. Let me quote you a cigarette ad. Everybody knows that smoking cigarette is harmful. Eating gutka is harmful. Even from rags to the riches, everybody knows that. How does that happen? Because there is so much of repetition that cigarettes, we go to a movie hall, we go on a screen, we go to TV, cigarette is harmful, cigarette is harmful. Same way, moral things are, why do we don't teach enough moral? Why don't we repeat enough? If we repeat moral things enough, the children will catch it, whether they are from rags to the riches. In our school, we have a SAGE program. SAGE's for Social Ethical Guidance program. Every Saturday, we make a virtue tree. A virtue tree is displayed. Every Saturday, there is an activity. The child has to repeat that activity, and a new leaf grows. That virtue tree is hanged in front of them. So all the time, the child is thinking about his nobility, his manners. The repetition is the key to it. That is how we are able to achieve it. The repetition, again, I am also repeating it again and again, but the repetition is key word here. 3 years to 6th class is the time when children, most of the habits are formed. So if you keep on repeating good things with them, they will write a good story. If you don't repeat good story enough time, they won't remember the story. Repeat the good story again and again, and make them do activities. Make them, if it's no fun saying help others once in a year. It's no fun saying donate something once in a year. Mr. Gopinathan said how. The key word is to repeat. If you do it enough time, it's a habit requires 45 days to be formed. So it becomes part of you. For example, happiness. I say happiness is like a dance form. You need to practice your dance. Otherwise, you'll forget the steps. So you need to practice happiness also. Start with small happiness steps and then make it a part of your personality. That simple it is.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is to Professor Mohan Babu. And this question is related to the motivation of teachers themselves. The question is that most of the teachers today are very uncertain in terms of their career progression. And when teachers themselves are not motivated enough, how will they motivate the children and inculcate moral values in the students to whom they are teaching? So this question has come a couple of times and in a couple of ways, and it is addressed to you, Dr. Mohan Babu. You are on mute. You can unmute, please.
Yeah. This is a real challenging question. Honestly, because I have been seeing those chats coming up. Many people have spoken, okay, many teachers have been removed from their jobs. They themselves don't have income. How is it that you expect teachers to contribute to the moral education of the society, development of the society? Really true. This is a practical situation, I tell you. There is no running away from reality. In fact, I myself know that lots of teachers in various schools and colleges have been released from their responsibilities, and they're not being paid. Even if they're paid less, and so on. Now the question is, basically, theoretically, I would say that teachers are self-motivated. Okay, there is nobody that need to be in order to motivate the teachers. But that is more theoretical approach, because people need money to survive and take care of their families and so on. Now, the very important aspect is society has given the responsibility to teachers to shape and build it very strongly, right? Naturally, it is the responsibility of the society to take care of the teachers also. It's very important. In fact, when I say society, it includes parents, it includes NGOs, it includes the government, it includes corporates, everybody. Everybody's children's studies, and they are being taught by teachers only. Naturally, it's very important for the entire society to take care of the interests of the faculty or teachers, okay, in this kind of a crisis, so that they do not lose their standing, their kind of, they should not be put into trouble. I would always say that the teachers need not expect full salary, need not expect, that should not be the case. At least to pull along this kind of a pandemic period, to tide over this pandemic period, there must be a proper support from all these sectors, so that the continuation of education can happen, continuation of as many of my panelists said, providing a sort of experiential learning, circumstantial learning, moral learning, all these things can happen with teachers over there. Teachers, in fact, students look towards teachers for various of these things. If teachers are discontinued in surveys and if they are completely demoralized, I don't think this can happen. That means on one side, teachers must be self-motivated. On the other side, at least a minimum expectation during this kind of a pandemic of the teachers must be met with by the government, by the NGOs or maybe corporates or whoever it is. Even the well-to-do parents who can pay the school fees to the schools must be able to pay. And teachers can survive on that for this small period of time. But once everything is over, let us get back to normal wages or whatever it is. It's ultimately how we get along with this kind of a period. Even parents are in trouble for that matter. You can't expect every parent to pay full fees at this particular moment. Maybe some people will be looking for concessions, some people looking for installments, some people looking for a deferment of due date. See, everybody is in trouble. Now, holding each other's hand is the one thing that should help the society to survive and go well. And this is what empathizing each other's problem means. That's what a teacher who teaches that should also know that. I don't know whether I answered your question properly or not.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Mohan Babu. I'll go to the next question. This is to Mr. Azadi. Now, this question has come from, sorry?
I hope it is an easy question.
No, this has come from a scientist.
Wonderful.
This question has come from the DRDO scientist, Professor H.S. Bhatia. So his question is, the way the world is moving, it is better that our education system becomes more spiritual in nature rather than academic in nature. What is your thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, actually, I'm motivated by this question coming from a scientist from DRDO. I have one of my friends, my classmates serving there in DRDO in Pune. Yes, actually, I agree with you because we are not really lacking in the extent of technology, scientific knowledge. And the world is not suffering because of the lack of scientific development. I agree with you. But actually, the root cause of the problems of the world is moral and spiritual. So definitely, while it is necessary that science has to develop and education should sharpen the mind of the students, education should raise the intellectual level of the students, it has also to come with the spiritual and moral dimension. So I would always say that academic excellence, scientific excellence has to combine with moral excellence. Otherwise, it becomes more dangerous. One of the scientists from Bombay once commented, he said very beautifully, he said, in the past, they were the illiterate and the, gundas or loafers who would put the society in trouble, who would become nuisance to the society. Now, unfortunately, it is the highly educated. Those minds which are trained with the latest technologies and sciences, they are the ones who are causing the greatest suffering to humanity. So I definitely agree with dear Bhatia sir. Thank you for this question. Very appropriate. And definitely it has to be scientific education, training of mind has to be along with training of heart and soul, which is spirituality and morality. Without that, we are just causing greater danger to the humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Azadi. Mr. Gopinath, the question which came to you earlier was there are so many government schools which are being funded by the state government, and there are equal number of NGOs which are there in rural areas. But still, in terms of the value education, the moral education, in terms of effectiveness, it is not as effective as one would expect. But if you actually see, there are other models which are evolving. So is there a way out? I think that's the question which people are trying to address, because you are behind most of these NGOs trying to develop their capacity and also increase their capability.
Yeah, so I don't know what is the specific answer to this. Let me try to respond to this. I think what I see is, yeah, it is true. There is one side, maybe a lot of technology is available. One side, probably there is so much efficiency is also available. But I think the biggest, that is my experience, is there seems to be somewhere the problem of the link, right? And knows and people who doesn't know, perhaps we don't have a proper channel. How can we link these two groups, right? Because I see a wonderful teachers who are open to learn in rural areas. Maybe they don't actually have a channel how to connect to other set of other groups, right? In fact, probably some of you would have heard about this great example this Azim Premji group has set up in remote villages of Karnataka, where they try to bring in NGOs and the schools together and to see how to really share the best practices, share the efficiency approaches, and they have created a very nice structure at a local level how this could be sorted out. So to my, I think, yeah, definitely all of us know at one side, there seems to be no dearth of knowledge available in this country. And there is also so much of technology today available. But equally, there's another side of the story where people don't know how to access it. So to my mind, I think maybe there is a great scope for NGOs and the educational institutions to also come together, because even NGOs is all about building society and education is all about it. Probably there is not so much link currently. So if there is a proper linkages and if there are some better approaches to see how can we build in efficiency, share knowledges, bring people together, there is a wonderful way to actually further grow. Right? So I don't know if it's the right answer, direct answer to that question. I think to my mind, that's what it can be done. We can bring efficiency. I think. So I was just listening to somebody told me there's in the remote villages how a government school teacher is still struggling to make her school a better school. Right? She still wants her children to get a best education. She still wants to see that her school is going to be the best in that particular local community. But she needs somebody's help. She needs somebody even to talk, at least to share her ideas and knowledge or get knowledge from outside. So if there is a good link, if we can build that, probably we may move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gopinath. Last question to you, ma'am. I'm not taking all the questions in the interest of time, but the question which has been posed to you is that how can you make value education as an integral part in all the subjects that are being taught in your university or in the institution where you teach at this point of time? Because students have their own aspiration. There is also an element of materialism. Then there is also pressure in terms of syllabus, course completion. How will you integrate value education as part of all the subjects that are being taught in your institution? I think that's the question.
Yeah, thank you, Dinesh. Uh, that's a very good question, which is required for all of us and for any individual. Value education is a must, and it is also there. We start from the kindergarten level to the undergraduate level. MHRD has already started an inclusive syllabus which has to go with value education. For undergraduate level, they have already introduced value-based paper, one paper for different courses. And it is a must for a student to study. That is one when you take it on a theoretical way. But as a teacher, any class, any teacher can probably bring in value system in a class. It can be last 5 minutes or it can be first 10 minutes of the class by asking a student to speak about what did you exactly do on the previous day? How did you help anybody? Did you help anybody? How do you have to help? Or maybe we have certain systems in our college. We have a system that each department is reaching towards the government schools, having the students along with them to teach there. That is kind of an inclusive education to impart value system through the practical exposure what they have. They are connecting to the students of government school, and the pleasure what they gain by teaching them is immeasurable. And they wait for us to come and ask, when are we going to the school? Next time, ma'am. And we have made it very on a regular basis to take them to the school. And those little kids in the government school, we just go reach in the vicinity of our premises. Maybe not very far because it is for the convenience of the students, girls and boys, everybody would be there, and we have to be answerable for the parents of the children also. In order to 1 hour, we would stipulate there. These are different ways a teacher has to probably bring in from their class. No matter what subject we teach, that is different take. But value system as teachers, if we have brought in within our personality, I think we can reach any number of students. That is a must for a human being. We need to have that as a principle. I think I would be able to reach that person's expectations. Probably I would have met it. I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I hand over the mic to Dr. Chetan Parekh. Dr. Chetan Parekh is a professor at IIIT Bangalore, and he is also a member of the Bangalore Baha'i Community. He used to teach earlier in United States, and now of course he is teaching here. And I'll request him to maybe summarize the whole session. We got extended, and if there are any key takeaways, maybe we can all learn from that. So Dr. Chetan Parekh, please.
Thank you, Dinesh. So Dinesh has given me 10 minutes to wrap up and thank everybody. So I'll start with thanking Dr. Mohan Babu, Mr. Jawahar Singh Dua, Professor Geeta, Mr. Gopi Gopinath, and Mr. Lesan Azadi. Thank you very much. It was an absolutely wonderful session. As Dinesh said, I have been a professor a long time, all my life, and I thought I knew everything. Sometimes professors think that, but I learned a lot today. So I'm very happy that you shared your wisdom and knowledge with us. I'm going to very quickly summarize, not in 10 minutes, in 2 minutes, just 3 or 4 points of what everybody said. So I'm going to read this.
Dr. Chetan, you have gone on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Teachers play an important role in shaping society. Number one, the primary task of a teacher is to create good human beings. In order to do these, teachers must be first prepared themselves. They must prepare themselves to become inculcators of values in their students, college students or school students. In this pandemic, students are in great need of psychological and educational help. The first thing to do for the teachers to provide this help is to establish effective communication channels. The second thing to do is to assure our students that we are there to help, and then to provide whatever help they ask from us as well as otherwise. In fact, the pandemic is providing us, any crisis provides us with a lot of opportunities to teach moral values. Any crisis does that, and therefore let us as teachers take this opportunity to inculcate moral values in children. And the last one way of inculcating moral values is through action, through service. And Mr. Gopinath asked a question, so I'll end with that question. How do we engage our children in community work, community activities, do community projects? Again, thank you very much. And this is all I wanted to end with.
So thank you very much. With this, we formally end today's session. We are grateful to all the panelists who took time from their schedule, and they were with us And I would also like to thank the audience. I think it was a very, very, very receptive, very interactive audience, because right from the time they started registering, they also started posting their expectation, the learning expectation, and they were very clear in terms of the learning outcomes, what they wanted to achieve. So it was a very, very interactive audience. And I also thank all those who were managing the backend. And thank you, each one of you, and look forward. I again apologize. I think there were so many questions, which kept on scrolling. But maybe we'll all reflect on some of the challenges that each one of you have presented, and it could probably help us to grow and also to be of some service to humanity. Thank you very much, and good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.